We got our base routing set up and the main components in place. Now let's continue working on this app. I think the logical next step, in my opinion at least, is to now implement a header so that we also get some links to route instead of having to manually type it in the URL. So let's add a header. And for that, since I use Bootstrap anyways, I'll head over to Bootstrap and pick the header on their page. So here under Components Navbar, we find the default Bootstrap navbar. Now I'm grabbing this whole navbar. That's much more than I need, but we'll strip out all the things we don't need. And with that, I'll go into my header.view file and insert this here into this template. With that, this is the whole Bootstrap navigation bar. Now let's remove all the things we don't need. For example, I won't set it up to work on mobile phones too, just to keep this simple and focused on the core view things here. Of course, you could change this. And therefore, I don't need that button here. I don't need that button in my navbar header. Also, I don't need the comment. What I do want indeed is my brand here, stock trader. Though that, of course, shouldn't be an anchor tag. That should be a router link instead, since we want to manage this through Vue.js, this link, I mean. So I'll create my router link here, and I want to link to my root page just like this. I also want to attach a class, I can still do this of course, of navbar brand. This is our normal Bootstrap class, which gives us this brand-like look. Let's continue. What do we have here? Here we got our navigation on the left. I want to use that. I want to have my stocks and portfolio links there. Don't need that ID here though. I will strip some things here though. I don't need a drop down here on the left, for example, so I can remove that, and I don't want to use the active link here. Instead, I want to basically set up my own links with router link, one for the portfolio and one for the stocks. However, we also want to have this anchor tag here, and we learned how to do this. Add an anchor tag between the router links here, because router link shall then be the list item in the end, which also gets the router link active class. So like this. And then on this first router link, we want to go to /portfolio. And on the second one, we want to go to /stocks. And whilst we're at it, we can already add the active class. So let's add the active class attribute here and set this to active, because this is what Bootstrap expects on the li item, on the list item, to mark this route as active. Well, finally, since I already said it, this should be a list item. So let's add tag equals li on our router link, so that this is not rendered as an anchor tag, but instead as a list item. With that, we should have a setup which works with both the Bootstrap styling and our Vue.js app. So I can remove the other Bootstrap links here. That should be an equal sign, of course. And with that, I'd say we have our router link set up. I don't need the form here. Now, I want to have some navigation on the right, though. And here, I want to indeed have a link, which allows me to end my day. So maybe a link where I keep the standard anchor tag, but then change this later on. We'll work on that. I'll name it end day for now. And then this dropdown. I want to have the dropdown. I didn't import the Bootstrap JavaScript code though, so it will not work by default, because we want to write the logic to open this dropdown and to handle it on our own in Vue.js. You could of course use the Bootstrap JavaScript package to let Bootstrap handle this, but on the other hand, if you're using Vue.js, you really want to do all or as good as all the JavaScript work through Vue.js. So I'm going to leave the dropdown here anyways. That is the quintessence of what I want to say here. I'll reorder this anchor tag which opens it though. So here I will simply bring that down over multiple lines so that we can easier see what's going on here. And I'll rename it to save and load, because that is what you'll be able to do in the dropdown in the end once we implemented it. And then regarding the dropdown links, I only need two. I want to be able to save data and I want to be able to load data later on. Now we're going to take care about the saving and loading in a later video, but it's good to have it set up right now. Also notice the dropdown, again, right now will not work. We'll also work on that. So with this, I'd say we have a nice header in place, at least template-wise. So if we now go back to our app.view file, we can add this header. Now, in order to add it, we first need to add an import here, of course. So let's quickly do that. Let's import our header from this components header file. And then I'll register it as a local component here since I only use it in this component here. So here I'll register my app header with this header file, and I can therefore now add it. So let's add app header here. Now the question is, do I want to add it here? The answer is yes, looks good. But I also want to add a div with a class row here, and then a div with a class call md12 here for some nicer styling, and then copy my router view in there. And that should be call xs here. So with this in place, let's have a look at our application. We see our header here, looks already better. One thing I want to do though is in my app.view file, I want to add a style for my body, for this root component body, to have some extra padding of 30 pixels so that not everything sits directly on the edge. With that, I'm liking that. Let's see if it works too. Great. You also notice how the active link gets marked here. So we got this working as it should. With that, I'd say let's move on and work on the next things in our application. Specifically, let's first think what that might be.